Hello everyone. In this video we are going to discuss about the chapter Molecular Basis of Inheritance, which is in class 12 CBSE syllabus, and part 12 focuses on translation. A lot of times we have repeated the central dogma, which is DNA to RNA, that is generally the mRNA, and then this mRNA is converted into proteins. And what is proteins? Proteins is a sequence of amino acids. And it is by the sequence of amino acids that form proteins is why the gene on the DNA is expressed. So the physical characteristics that we see are because of these proteins. So the process of conversion of mRNA into proteins is called as translation. So this is what we are going to discuss about in this particular video, and we'll also discuss the questions that can arrive in the NIT examination as we progress through the video. So the process by which amino acids are polymerized to form polypeptide is known as translation. Okay, what is polymerization? Formation. For example, multiple amino acids are joined together to form a polypeptide structure, and this process is called as translation. It is a process of protein synthesis that is carried out in the cytoplasm and forms one of the most complex activities in a cell. If you followed the previous part of this chapter, we discussed about transcription. Where does transcription takes place? Transcription takes place inside the nucleus. But translation, that is formation of a polypeptide, takes place in the cytoplasm. So this is important, okay? You must know that transcription takes place in the nucleus, because DNA is present in the nucleus, so mRNA is then formed inside the nucleus only. And then this mRNA that is formed inside the nucleus must be transported to the cytoplasm where translation takes place. The process of translation is a complex process as it requires 20 different amino acids, okay, that are coded in a precise order and sequence. And if you remember from the previous part, there are codons. What are codons? Codons are sequence of 3 nucleotides, and one codon codes for one amino acid. Okay, so these 20 different amino acids are required for the process of translation. The sequence in which bases are present in the mRNA determines the sequence in which amino acids will be present in the polypeptide. You really remember, like we talked about all these triplet codons like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth. So this is the mRNA. And codon is a triplet sequence. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, say 4 codons. So these 4 codons will code for 4 amino acids. Okay. So the sequence in which the bases are present in the mRNA determine the sequence. It will be always in the sequence. The first codon will code for the first amino acid, second for second, third for third, fourth for fourth, and so on so forth. So the sequence in which bases are present determine the sequence in which amino acid will be present in the polypeptide. And translation occurs on ribosomes present in the cytoplasm. We also briefly discussed about ribosomes, in the previous part, but we'll see in much more detail here. So in the process of translation, 3 types of RNA are involved. Apart from mRNA, 3 to 5 rRNA molecules are present as part of structure of each ribosome. Okay, so there is mRNA, then there is rRNA, and then there is tRNA. We have discussed a lot about mRNA. It is basically which results in the formation of protein. And in the previous parts, we also discussed about tRNA, which acts as an adapter. It has a clover leaf structure. It acts as an adapter between mRNA and protein. Okay, so this is what helps in the process of translation. So in addition to mRNA and tRNA, there is another RNA, that is rRNA, that is the ribosomal RNA. And this ribosomal RNA is a component of ribosome, that is one of the major structures that are required for the process of translation, and we'll see that in a while. Then addition to rRNA, 40 to 60 tRNA molecule function as adapter by facilitating the incorporation of proper amino acid into polypeptide bases on specific nucleotide sequence into mRNA. A very long sentence. So, if you went through the previous part, you remember we studied about the structure of tRNA. And then there were different types of amino. It had a clover leaf like structure. For example, like hypothetically, let's say it was something similar to this. And sometimes, there is also a variable arm here. So, this part was the anticodon loop. Okay, so what does this anticodon loop? So, this is a tRNA molecule. What does this anticodon loop do? This anticodon loop will recognize the codon on mRNA. Okay, and then here was the acceptor arm. So this acceptor arm is then responsible for bringing in the amino acids. Okay, so 40 to 60 tRNA molecule function as adapters by facilitating incorporation of proper amino acids. These amino acids, how they are formed? Because there is this interaction of anticodon-codon loop, there is amino acid that is accepted at the acceptor arm, that is then forming the polypeptide based on specific nucleotide sequence into the mRNA. So basically you have to remember that there is this codon-anticodon interaction that results in bringing the amino acid to the acceptor arm that forms the polypeptide structure. The amino acids are joined by a bond which is known as peptide bond. This is very important, okay? You should definitely know this, that the amino acids are joined by a bond called as the peptide bond. Since peptide bond formation is an energy requiring process, activation of amino acid takes place with the help of ATP and linking to tRNA. So what is activation of amino acid? Activation of amino acid is when an amino acid binds to the correct tRNA molecule. Okay, when there is this proper codon-anticodon interaction, then the amino acid binds to tRNA. This is called as activation of amino acid, and this takes place with the help of ATP, which provides energy. The amino acids are attached to tRNA by high energy bonds between the carboxyl group of the amino acid and 3' OH terminus of the tRNA, and this process is called as charging of tRNA or amino acylation of tRNA. If you again go to the clover leaf structure of tRNA, this variable arm, and hypothetically let's say this is ugly structure, but let's say this is the structure. This was the acceptor arm, and here there was the structure CAA, and then here was a 3' OH. For example, let's say I think this was CA, and then there is this 3' OH that is present. So how is the high energy bond formed? The amino acids are attached to tRNA by high energy bonds between the carboxyl group of amino acid and 3' OH termini of the tRNA. So 3' OH termini at the acceptor arm. Okay, so this forms a bond with the amino acid, that is a high energy containing bond. So now we talk about ribosomes. Ribosomes are very important because they help in the process of translation. In prokaryotes, ribosomes are distributed throughout the cells, while in eukaryotes they are located in the cytoplasm. And why in cytoplasm? Because translation takes place in cytoplasm. These are made up of 50% protein and 50% RNA. These RNA are structural RNA as they are part of ribosome structure. One large and one small subunit make up the ribosome. So ribosome always has like two subunits, both in prokaryotes as well as in case of eukaryotes, and then one large and one small subunit results in the formation of a ribosome. Okay, and these are made up of 50% protein and 50% RNA. Once translation is complete, these subunits dissociate. So they come together for the process of translation, and once the process of translation is over, they then dissociate. The size of ribosome is expressed in terms of their sedimentation rates during centrifugation in Swedberg's unit. This is a very important thing that you must know. Sometimes, they can ask this question. Okay, in some of the examinations, they can ask this question. So it is expressed in terms of their sedimentation rates. Whenever you centrifuge something, if it is heavy, it will settle down. Okay, so there is sedimentation rate in Swedberg units, which is abbreviated as capital S. So a prokaryotic ribosome in 70S, and it is composed of small 30S subunit and large 50S subunit. So it is never like it is the sum of 50 plus 30 80. No, because it is the sedimentation rate. So when both of them are sedimented together, the rate is 70. So you must remember 70 is because of 50 and 30. Never say that it is 80. This can be a very confusing question in the examinations. They can directly ask you, which is the combination like 50S, 30S. So just remember 50 and 30 results in the formation of the 70S ribosomal subunit in prokaryotes. So here we see the diagrammatic representation, and first let us just look at the prokaryotic ribosome. So what did we say? We said that ribosome consists of what? It consists of 50% protein and 50% RNA, and these are the structural components. So here there are like 31 ribosomal proteins, okay? And then we also discussed that there is a large subunit, that is 50S subunit, and small subunit 30S subunit. Let us look at the 30S subunit first. So there are 21 ribosomal proteins, and then so it contains proteins, of course, 50% protein. So there are 21 ribosomal proteins, and then there is RNA. Which RNA? 16S RNA, which is rRNA because it is ribosomal RNA. So these two components result in the formation of a 30S subunit, which is the small subunit of prokaryotic 70S ribosome. Now let us look here. These are 31 ribosomal proteins and they contain three types of rRNA. Okay, so first is this 31 ribosomal protein. Then there are three types of rRNA. The first is the 5S, second is the 23S, and the third component is the protein. Okay, so there are two rRNAs, not three. So there are total three components that result in the formation of the 50S large subunit. So this is one of the favorite question in examinations. They will easily ask you, like, they will make sentences. They will write 30S subunit 16S rRNA, or they will write 30S subunit 5S RNA, and you have to find the right option that results in the formation of 70S ribosome. So you must remember 70S ribosome contains the 30S subunit that contains the 16S rRNA, and it contains the large subunit which is the 50S subunit that contains 5S rRNA and 23S rRNA. So this can be sometimes difficult to memorize. The best will be if you make a flow chart. Okay, just make a flow chart on a sheet and go through it every day, and easily you will learn it in a while. Now let's come to the eukaryotic or the mammalian ribosome. In eukaryotes things are always a bit more complex. We know that. So again, the main principle is the same, that 80S ribosome contains 60S subunit and 40S subunit. Okay, so the principle is same. Here 70S was 50 plus 30, here 80 is 60 plus 40. So these sedimentation constants are different. So never say that they are sum or something. So you must remember 60 and 40 subunit form 80S ribosome in eukaryotes. 50 and 30 form 70S ribosome in prokaryotes. So in prokaryotes, 16S rRNA is the component of 30S subunit, and 5S and 23S are component of 50S subunit. Now let us look again back to the eukaryotic ribosome. So again, there is one big unit and one small subunit. So the small subunit contains 33 ribosomal proteins and 18 srRNA, which is the ribosomal rRNA. And here the large subunit contains again 4 components here. It has 49 ribosomal proteins, then it has 5 sRNA, 5.8 sRNA and 28 srRNA. All these RNAs are rRNA because they are ribosomal RNA, because they are only present as components of the ribosome. Okay, they are present as structural components of ribosome. So you must remember that the 60S subunit contains ribosomal proteins, 49 ribosomal proteins, then it contains 5S rRNA, 5.8S rRNA, 28S rRNA, resulting in the formation of the 60S subunit. And then 18S RNA contains 40S subunit. Now the small subunit generally only contains one type of rRNA. In prokaryotes, it contains, the large subunit contains 2 types, and in eukaryotes, it contains 3 types. So you have to memorize it, because there will be very easy and direct questions in the NIT examination. So these types of questions, they are very easy to score. So just make a flow chart and then it will be very easy to remember. So this is now how it is written, so that you can go through it. A eukaryotic ribosome is slightly larger than the prokaryotic and it is 80S. So what was eukaryotic? It was 70S. So it is composed of small 40S subunit and large 60S subunit. The 60S subunit contains 49 ribosomal protein, 5S rRNA, 5.8S and 28S rRNA. You must remember this. And the 40S subunit contains 33 ribosomal protein and 18S RNA. The ribosomes present in chloroplast and mitochondria, they are generally small, they are 60S. Okay, you must also remember this. This is very important. So why are we studying so much about ribosomes? Of course, they have important roles during translation, as we discussed before. So ribosomes provide surface for binding of mRNA in the groove of smaller subunit. Okay, both in prokaryotes and eukaryotes. You must remember what is the function of smaller subunit. Now you will realize that there is a reason why there is a small subunit and there is a large subunit. So ribosome provides surface for binding of mRNA in the groove of small subunit. Since the large subunit of ribosome has enzyme peptidyl transferase on its P side, it helps in joining the amino acid by forming peptide bond. So, this is, let's say, for example, the small subunit and this is the large subunit. So what will the small subunit do? The small subunit will have a groove that will help in binding of the mRNA to it. Okay, that is the function of the small subunit. Now, what is the function of the large subunit? The large subunit has the enzyme peptidyl transferase. So there is a particular site called as the P site on the large subunit. So this is the large subunit, this is the small subunit. And what is the role of peptidyl transferase? It helps in the formation of peptide bond. Okay. So this is present on the large subunit, and then this is the mRNA, and here will be like the tRNA coming and resulting in the formation of amino acids because of the peptidyl transferase activity. We will see it in a diagrammatic representation very soon, but for now let us understand, both the subunits, the small subunit and large subunit, have different roles to play. That is why there are 2 subunits. Small subunit is responsible for the binding of mRNA and large subunit is responsible for the formation of peptide bonds. The sequence of RNA, which has a start codon on the side and stop codon on the other side, codes for polypeptide, and it is called as the translational unit of mRNA. Do you remember the start codon and stop codons, right? You remember the start codon is which one? AUG. And which are the 3 stop codons? UAA, UAG and UGA. You must remember these 3, okay? Very direct and simple questions. So the sequence of RNA in between the start codon AUG and stop codon either UAA, UAG or UGA codes for polypeptide is called as translational unit of the mRNA. Some sequences are not translated in the mRNA They are present before the start codon at the 5' end and after the stop codon at the 3' end. They are known as untranslated regions, because they are not translated. However, they aid efficient translation, because most of the regulatory parts will be there, and we'll also see that in the regulation of gene expression in subsequent parts of this chapter, that these untranslated regions are very important because they aid in efficient translation. The process of translation is divided into initiation, elongation and termination of polypeptide chains. And by now we know this, because we know replication has these 3 steps, transcription has these 3 steps, and now translation, formation of polypeptide chain, is also divided into initiation, elongation and termination. For initiation, the ribosome binds to the mRNA at the start codon, AUG. Very easy, because mRNA has this AUG that will bind to the ribosome that is recognized only by the initiator tRNA. Okay, so for initiation, the ribosome binds to mRNA, and which subunit of ribosome? The smaller subunit of the ribosome will bind to the mRNA at the start codon AUG that is recognized by the initiator tRNA. This clover leaf structure of tRNA, because it has this anticodon, it will recognize this AUG. The ribosome proceeds to the elongation phase of protein synthesis. During this stage, complexes composed of an amino acid linked to tRNA sequentially bind to appropriate codon in mRNA by forming complementarity base pairing with tRNA anticodon. Now, this complementary base pairs is always there, it is there in replication, it is there in transcription, and now in translation in case of mRNA and tRNA codon anticodon interaction. So you see, here is the mRNA structure. Okay, so this is the mRNA structure and this is the ribosome. So this is here the small subunit and this one is the large subunit. So what is the role of the small subunit? The small subunit allows binding of the mRNA. So you see, the mRNA is closely packed into the small ribosomal subunit, and the large ribosomal subunit has to do peptidide transferase activity, that is formation of peptide bond. And what is a peptide bond? It is a bond between 2 amino acids. So you see, this is the tRNA, CGU. So this tRNA is here, and then again there is another tRNA that recognizes CAA and codes for valine. So here is the clover leaf structure of tRNA. For example, let's say this square is not square, but for example, let us draw the clover leaf structure here again. So what happens is, let's just see, this is similar. So what happens is that here is the anticodon loop. So this is the anticodon loop that is going to recognize this, and then there is this codon anticodon interaction, GUU and CAA. Once there is proper codon anticodon interaction here, there will be addition of valine. Okay, so there will be now proper peptide bond formed between this sequence, that is already the growing polypeptide chain, and this structure. It is very important, So what happens, every tRNA, for example, if you look here, this tRNA is bound to the amino acid ASN, asparagine. So you see, this tRNA is here, but this valine tRNA is here. Why is it so? This is because there is proper codon anticodon interaction. So there are multiples, as we said before, approximately 40 to 60 tRNA are present. So there will be multiple tRNA. For example, this is the cytoplasm. There will be multiple tRNA molecules that will be there. Okay, but only the proper tRNA carrying the right amino acid will be capable of binding to the growing polypeptide chain, and this is because once the tRNA comes in close vicinity, it forms codon anticodon interaction, and until and unless this codon anticodon interaction is 100% correct, the addition of the new amino acid will not take place. Okay, is it clear? I hope it is clear, For example, let's say this asparagine tRNA comes here. It will not be added to the growing polypeptide chain because here UUA will not have proper codon-anticodon interaction. If there is no proper interaction, there is no addition of amino acid. So this is very important, that is why we studied about the clover leaf structure, because there is this codon-anticodon, there is this anticodon loop that recognizes the codon, and simultaneously the growing polypeptide chain allows the addition of the right amino acid. Okay, so the ribosome proceeds to the elongation phase of protein synthesis. These new amino acids are added. During this stage, complexes composed of an amino acid linked to tRNA. Complexes composed of amino acid valine to the proper tRNA sequentially bind to appropriate codon in mRNA. They sequentially bind to appropriate codon in mRNA by forming complementary base pairs with tRNA anticodon. I hope this process is clear. It is very important that why asparagine is not binding and only valine is binding. This is because of the proper codon-anticodon interaction. And then the ribosome moves from codon to codon along the mRNA. It will keep on adding new amino acids. Amino acids are added one by one, translated into polypeptide sequence dictated by DNA and represented by mRNA. Of course, by now I think we know this by heart, that DNA, mRNA and protein. And on DNA we have genes, and protein is made up of amino acids. At the end, a release factor binds to the stop codon. And which are the three stop codons? UAA, UAG and UGA. So a release factor binds to the stop codon, terminating translation and releasing the complete polypeptide chain from the ribosome. So there is a factor that is called as release factor. It comes and binds to the stop codon. It has structure similar to that of tRNA, but it doesn't contain any amino acid. Okay, so this release factor binds to the stop codon, any of the stop codons that is present, terminating translation and releasing the complete polypeptide from ribosome. So this is how the entire process of translation takes place. So from this part, it is very important that you know the ribosome structure. Okay, so this is the most important thing from this part. Then there will be questions from this part in examinations, and definitely then you need to know the process of translation. Just understand the basics. If you understand the basics, then it is very important to remember the small things. Thank you for watching the video.